What's up, guys? This is Ryan from Elevate Security. Now in this video we are going to spend a little bit more focus on talking about how to avoid those pesky rabbit holes that I'm sure you guys encounter if you do a lot of CTFs, the more difficult ones, especially OSCP, no doubt, and even to a certain extent in the real world in your day-to-day pen testing that you might encounter. So really, in the other videos, we've been covering a lot on the low-hanging fruit. And the reason that I kind of lump these two things together is because they definitely do go hand in hand. If you can identify what are the low-hanging fruits, I guess it sounds a little weird to say it like that, but the low-hanging fruits, if you understand what those are and how to find them, how to go about testing them, which is why I'm going to really be diving into those in other videos, each service going more granular, how to enumerate those things. But yeah, that really ties in with avoiding the rabbit holes, and I'll tell you how. The way that it really does is that, first of all, there's no way to completely know if something is a rabbit hole or not, and a lot of experience is what's going to be your greatest ally here, is just getting as much experience in testing the different services, finding different vulnerabilities that manifest themselves in different ways. But with that being said, you definitely, this is a point that I mentioned in one of the other videos in this series, is that you definitely want to make sure that you always have some passive recon going on. That way, even if you do go down a rabbit hole, you didn't completely waste all of your time on the rabbit hole, and then you have to sort of start from scratch and look into other services, other enumeration. You want to have your tools running in the background, especially if it's not something that could potentially bring down the server, which, to be honest with you, in OSCP is not something you even need to worry about, because you can always reset the boxes and stuff like that. You want to always have your recon going. So for example, just give you a practical example here real quick. Let's say that you encounter a login page and it could be potentially vulnerable to SQL injection. Well, go ahead and run SQL map in the background and have that test out for, well, after you run your manual payloads, of course, go ahead and fire up SQL map, have it try the SQL injection stuff in the background. Sorry, this might be a bit noisy here. I'll try to project enough so you guys can hear me, but yeah, have SQL map running while you're testing other things. And you see, oh, there's also FTP open on the box. Okay, let's try to do the anonymous login and see if we can find anything on there, right? Or whatever other services, SMB, let me run SMB map and SMB client and all that stuff and enumerate that, right? So the more that you can stack, the more efficient you're going to be. And let me just tell you that when you're taking the exam on the OSCP, it's all about being efficient. You want to make sure that you're making use of the time, because even though 24 hours might sound like a lot of time that you have for this thing, it'll go quicker than you think, and especially when you factor in getting a little bit of sleep and stuff like that, you're definitely going to want to make use of as effective time management as possible. So that is like the first number one tip. Always have your passive recon running in the background, always. And then as far as how do you realize when something is a rabbit hole, like really getting into that subject, I would say that there's no way that you're going to know for 100% certain and 100% definitively, whether that's in the OSCP, even in the real world, right? You don't know necessarily if something's going to be fruitful or not. However, this is where it ties into the low-hanging fruit. You know that it could potentially be vulnerable to certain exploits or certain vulnerabilities that are common, you've seen in the past, and stuff like that. So you kind of have this hierarchy of things that you're going to test for with all of these services, and that's why I'm making these videos where I'm really going to break down that, because it depends on, you know, what port's open, what service is running, as to what kind of testing, how I'm going to test that, right? So really having knowledge and experience is going to help you the most. But even if you're completely new at this, just started getting in your mind what to look for when you see certain ports, and develop this hierarchy in your mind of, okay, this is the quickest, most obvious thing that I'm going to test for first, right? You want to save the really time-consuming, really intensive tests for the end, right? Because there's no point in like testing something that's going to take so much time when the thing that worked was the thing that took 5 seconds, right? So you want to look for the low-hanging fruit first. You want to focus in on the quickest things to exploit, assuming that, of course, in the real world, you really want to make sure that you factor in, will this potentially bring the service or the server down, right? Because that's a real thing, right? You definitely never, even if you're on a CTF, you don't want to just be blindly throwing exploits at a system either, because that's a really script kiddie way to do things, right? But you want to have your hierarchy, and you want to do the low-hanging fruit first, and you keep going. It's not that, oh, it's not that, it's not that, it's not that. Then you work your way down to the more time-intensive, resource-intensive, maybe, tests. And that's how you tackle that. And if you do things that way, and if you are really, having your testing running in parallel, always in like passive recon going on, it's going to really, really help mitigate this issue. And the more experience you get, the more obvious, because a lot of these things are very situational. It depends on what port's open, like what service is running, and it depends on a lot of factors that you're going to be able to notice once you have gained more experience in pen testing. But in the beginning, it's going to be pretty difficult. If you're a beginner, definitely watch the subsequent videos that I'm going to be coming out with. I'm not sure where I'm going to post this video within the series. Maybe I already created them. But yeah, definitely watch the ones where I'm really enumerating certain ports, really breaking down how to exploit, find and exploit some low-hanging fruit stuff when it comes to specific services, because that's going to give you the most value, I think, just understanding these services, what's potentially out there, what sort of things should you look for, how should you look for them. But yeah, this is a pretty complex topic. The low-hanging fruit isn't hard to understand, but to identify a rabbit hole and know which area you want to test in, that can be pretty difficult. But there's ways to systemize it, like I was speaking about here. So hopefully this helps. Let me know if there's any questions, things I might need to clear up down in the comments section below, and I'll get those things addressed. And I will see you guys in the next video.